Captain on the bridge.
Alright, captains, we are back on the bridge, and today we are going to be going over the last episode of Star Trek Picard Season 2. Now, for those of you captains that know me, I've said many a times on the Twitch bridge, on the YouTube bridge, some of our videos here, that my first introduction into Star Trek was Star Trek The Next Generation. I've also mentioned that my love for Star Trek is literally three things. Ships for the pretty pew-pews, characters, and of course story. Now, it's not necessarily that deep in any of those three categories. It's almost like superficial in a way, but being young, a lot of us get connected to a lot of things that we see when we're growing up. And for me, Star Trek The Next Generation was one of them. So the galaxy has a place in my heart. Captain Picard will always be my captain. And the stories from The Next Generation has always taught me the message of hope. Here and there. Growing up, I've always used that to sort of course, like everyone else, judge every series that you encountered or that came after. And when it came to Star Trek Picard, when I first heard of it, I was super excited. Like, super excited. My captain was coming back on screen. And why wouldn't I be happy? I have mentioned before in the reviews that we do that I, nowadays, now in my age, I don't necessarily like to watch an episode and then wait for the next. And especially now how these episodes are kind of have been like long story arcs that literally are stretched from episode 1 to the last episode. In the time of Picard Season 1, I was humming and hawing, wondering if I was going to actually watch it, and waiting, of course, for it to end. But I was also watching clips from it. Now, watching these clips for me necessarily does not ruin the experience of watching the actual show. For some reason, call it a truism, but I literally will forget what I watched up to that moment and go, oh, wow, there you go. And sometimes there is context, of course, that I missed, but for the most part, the scene is either I'm going to enjoy it or I'm not going to enjoy it, period, point blank. Seeing the scenes from Star Trek Picard Season 1, in all honesty, I wasn't feeling it. I really wasn't feeling it. Of course, Picard was there. Of course, I was super happy. But my take on him was he changed. Oh, duh. Thanks, Tips. Cheers. Good job. 20 years, 30 years is a long time since the last time we actually saw him in action as the Captain Picard, or at least as the Captain Picard that I knew. And that's been ingrained in me. What I saw was, and I hate to say this is nothing against Patrick Stewart, I love him, is his age was showing. And a lot of the scenes that I seen with Picard is, it just seemed like he was slurring, he's very frail, almost about to keel over, and I hate to say that. But, and this is one of the reasons why I want him in Star Trek Online. Just because of time. Captain, I'm going to leave it on that note there, on that subject, but I want him on Star Trek Online. We have an audio recording of him there. That's not the same. It really isn't. So seeing him, hearing him was just kind of a shock to the system. And then, of course, how it ended in Season 1, he literally died and was put into a body, a synth body that not really him. So just that alone sort of turned me off. And I was okay with not watching it. Obviously, there's the winners of that season for me was Seven, just having Seven back, of course. The other characters in that season that, of course, goes into season 2, I couldn't really connect with. And I'll talk about that in my closure. So, what we're going to do in this vid is go over, or continue going over, kind of my two ECs. I may be jumping back and forth. I do have my notes here from watching the episode, because the first time I watched it, and we're talking about Farewell here, first time I watched it, I just skimmed through the parts. And then I watched, and then after that, after sitting on it a little bit and just letting it soak in, obviously to the moment that that is one of the best moments I think so far, my opinion. I sat back down again, watched it in entirety. I didn't really miss that much. Sometimes people tell me, "Oh, you missed context of the scene or whatever, or the meaning." No, I really didn't, and that actually did that for all the episodes too, to get sort of where we are. And yeah, I missed lines here and there, but if anything, I just missed moments but not context, in my opinion. So, anyways, going back to what I said earlier, I couldn't connect with a lot of the characters from season 1 to season 2. And we'll go over that at the end of this video. Season 2 started off with a banger. Captains, you know, I released a video just a couple days ago, which I did actually about a week after it released, but I held on to it because there's so many things to cover that we were covering on Star Trek Online, Changing Worlds, Resurgence. But, Captains, you know how I felt. From just those 2 episodes alone, I wanted Stargazer, I wanted the Excel 2.0. And of course, I also made another video, I think about a month back, saying, okay, well, I want also this being a sort of TFO / mission task force operation in Star Trek Online. That's how much I loved what I saw in the first bit of Picard. Now, it almost felt like, and it was discussed by other content creators, that it was just a makeup for what season 1 was, especially that last ship scene with a copy and paste inquiry. Love that ship, but man, that was just poorly done. There is a fan-made scene where they put all the canon ships as opposed to the inquiry, and that fits so much better. So this was definitely an improvement. And okay, you know what? To me, them telling us, okay, we heard you, here, have some pretty ships, pretty pew-pews, here, have some. And here's the thing, there wasn't even any pew-pews, right? There was none. With the exception of like a transporter beam cutting through the shield of the Stargazer on this. So, how did it sort of start this whole season 2? Well, we know there's a signal. Picard was being called out by the Borg directly, gets onto the Stargazer, is on the bridge. Queen gets on there, starts causing all mass havoc, and of course, Picard is forced to initiate the self-destruct, which of course, then all the shenanigans in season 2 happens. Keep that in mind. We're going to circle back onto that. We're going to circle back onto that moment. Now, my love for Star Trek, like I said, has a lot to do with TNG, has a lot to do with Captain Picard. And I respect what Patrick Stewart has done with the character over the years. Keep this in mind, Captains. He had a lot of creative input. I believe he's also like one of the executive producers on this. This is his work that he wanted to sort of course, have input in, but also close it off. If I were in his position, I would probably feel the same way. And 20 to 30 years is a lot of time to think of how you want to close off a certain thing in your life. I have to sometimes check myself and tell myself, Triz, this is just a show. This is just a show. None of this is real. We want it to be real, but none of this is real. It's just a show. So keep that in mind. At least I try to keep that in mind, especially when I go over this and especially when we have discussions on this on the Twitch bridge, YouTube bridge, wherever. But we'll do the same thing what we did with the Strange New Worlds and kind of go over scenes that I saw, things that I want to drop ECs on. Now, I do have some visuals here. Let's hope I don't get in trouble for them. But at this point in time, I think it's transformative enough that we can show them, at least so that we have some sort of visual reference to go to, as opposed to this. Now, what you see on screen here, Captains, this is something I put on the screen when we first got this image on stream because I loved it. I loved it. Of course, having Picard, but Q. One of my favorite scenes of Q that I replayed over and over and over again from season 2 was that first initial meetup with Picard. All those moments from Picard, from him replacing Picard's android, taken to the room of skulls, slapping him, and then just kind of leaving him be. All those lines from that specific time frame, penance, was just things I just kept replaying over and over again on YouTube. Because Delancey in this, to me, delivered a very, very good performance. I mean, there's no way that I can give this anything lower than a 10 for his performance. Because it made me connect with him. I already had a connection with him, of course, and he's always had these sort of lines with Picard, the relationship with Picard, and this is almost tying it up in a bow coming to an end here. And of course, we'll just go over that, of course, more. Now, in those scenes, of course, in how he's talking to Picard, Picard does notice something's off with Q. And yes, there is definitely something off with Q. He's dying. Period, point blank. He's just dying. But he says this is all about forgiveness. Picard's like, what? Now this is is a pretty elaborate way for to teach someone a lesson. So brings him to an alternate timeline, and of course, throughout the whole series, up until the end, what happens? Of course, brings him to an alternate timeline where there's a lot of things going on there with the Confederation, a lot of things that we also want in Star Trek Online, I want in Star Trek Online, is definitely the World Razor. Because in this timeline, the Confederation, this alternate future, think about this, the Confederation took out every species that was there in their opposition, that they wanted to rule. Even the Borg. They captured the Borg. Picard captured the Borg using the World Razor, which is a heavily modified galaxy. The World Razor, Star Trek Online, when? Hopefully soon. Hopefully. I would drop some ECs for that, definitely. So there's that. Okay, so Picard then is like, well, we got to fix it, right? So what happens? Well, gets all this information. We're going to skip past that. What happens? They go back to the past before that point happens, that trigger point happens that is going to create that timeline. And what is that point in time? Well, it is, of course, the Europa mission. So that is kind of the beginning. I thought that was a very, very strong start to Picard Season 2. Now, the reason why I chose not to watch all those episodes in between fully and just skim them was I knew that, one, there's going to be no ships. If there were, it's just going to be like maybe models, pictures, whatever. Two, the characters, like I said, Picard was at times just was not the captain I remember. And it was sometimes very hard. He was slurring his words at times to me and just looked very frail. There was like one moment where Elnor got shot by Seven's husband there, timeline, and he's on the ground, Raffi's down with him, and he's trying to comfort, Picard's trying to comfort Elnor, kind of bending down his knees, saying everything's gonna, it just looked really bad. I get it, captains, he's going on in age, and that's why I said, get him on Star Trek Online now. But anyways, I knew that with all that, there was going to be nothing. Now, we did already predict this, and it's in one of my VODs on the Twitch bridge, is that what's going to happen, right? They're going to fix the timeline, however that will be. It's just how they're going to do it. And what's going to happen is Q's going to snap his fingers, and they're going to be back onto the Stargazer. We already said that. It's just how it's all going to play up to that point. Right, and there is some memorable character there along the way that we'll kind of talk about later, but I'm just sort of getting this out there to show you, captains, that I do have a connection with Picard that I want to share with you, captains, because like I said, this is why I'm into Trek. This is why you see all the content here on the YouTube bridge. This is why I share nightly what I do in Star Trek Online on the Twitch bridge, is because I love Star Trek because of Captain Picard. Because of Patrick Stewart and what he's done with Picard. So there's no doubting that. So now, we get to the last episode. This is where all the action is going to happen. I will say that the pacing, I can't say was like super fast, but there was a lot of things going on. A lot of scenes that, especially in moments that there was crunch time, is flipping back and forth. But what I did was pick moments here and there when it came to point to the story. And that's kind of where I want to go over some of the things. So on screen, we have, of course, the start of the episode. They're in Picard's chateau. He's explaining that these bullet holes were from when his ancestors were occupying or whatever. And Rios is like, well, so does this mean things are changing? Like, we're not sure. They, of course, go talk about Girardi's, and at this point, I'm gonna diverge from this. At this point, goes back to we're gonna go back to speaking about Girardi, one of the characters. Girardi's cool. She has a little quirk to her, a little sass to her, a little funny. I like it. But before this episode, she obviously becomes the Borg Queen and scoots off to the Delta Quadrant in the La Serena. So then they go back now. This is where they talk about the prophecy that is given to them by Girardi, saying there's going to be 281 must die. So of course they're like, what does that even mean? And of course we know Talon is the Watcher, the Guardian of Renee, Picard's great ancestor, who has to be protected. In that moment, Talon starts really, really breathing heavily, like heavily. And I don't know who this actress is. A lot of her scenes have been literally just acting out through her emotions, the way she's speaking, and this got me, because of course we know it's gonna happen, right? Of course, Picard's like, what? Raffi, and then she says later, Picard. We know what we already know. Okay, Picard, Raffi gets in. Of course, they teleport now to her place. They're given 2 devices that is going to act like a transport. And of course, they know how to use it, because why not? Sure, Raffi, Techie. I'm going to speak to Raffi quickly. Raffi is one of the characters I couldn't connect to as well, along with Rios. And that's fine. It doesn't mean that I hate it because of characters I can't connect with. it's just I just couldn't connect with them. That's all. It's just my personal thing. Talon, though, I connected with her because of the brilliance of the performance she brought in the scenes that I seen her in. It just felt like Rios was trying too hard. He had some good moments. Raffi really trying hard, and it just, I'm not saying it made me cringe, but there was moments going, ugh, ugh, my face tweaked a little bit. When I say tweaked, there's that, that squint and you kind of turn your head going, huh, nani? Nani, 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 nani. But it doesn't mean that it's bad, but it does affect my overall scoring at the end of this whole thing. So Talon says later, they go into her apartment, and then this scene comes up. So they're going to split up. Okay, Talon is gonna go to Renee. She's gonna teleport there, transport there. The rest are gonna go to Sung's house, right? And we'll speak more on Sung later, but so this scene was just hatching up the plan on what's gonna happen. Whatever. So she's about to go. What happens? Picard steps right in. Why? He's not gonna allow that to happen. Of course, Raffi, Seven, and Rios are like, "Meh? What now?" Right? Like, what's gonna happen? But you know, the next scene, essentially, they do go to mission control, and they're there. Picard says, "Hey, listen, I know what you're trying to do. I'm not gonna let you do it." This scene made me connect with Talon a lot. Because, of course, saying that's not your choice. This is my life. I'm going to protect Renee. Which I thought was really, really good. And one of the things that Picard says, like, I won't let you. Then Talon's like, won't let me? Excuse you. This is my life. You know, and again, the exchange between the two was really good. And you kind of see it in her face. She's like, excuse me? It's hilarious in a way. But I'm starting to, again, find that connection with, because she is a very strong-willed character, and I did enjoy all the scenes that she was in. I really did. Because it was all through her performance that she was really trying to put across the screen her purpose, which of course was just protecting Renee. So they're talking, they're literally, back and forth. At the end of it, Alan goes, right? She's gonna do her thing. They talk about literally Picard's mom. Okay, and when that reveal happened about what's preventing Picard to kind of move on in a certain aspect of his life, that's pretty traumatizing. I think back to my childhood and or my life in general and try to think, is there anything that happened so bad that my memory just, or my mind goes, nope, we're going to seal it away. No, you're not going to think about that. I can't say that I have. That's pretty traumatic. And it kind of speaks to sort of the human mind. And with the human mind, it's a very interesting thing that it's complicated. So, and it's not to say that this doesn't happen. There is something called as memory block. Like our memory, and that's why there are things such as sessions where people will sit down and someone's literally asking you questions, this and this and that, while maybe even under hypnosis mostly. And then certain things, certain questions, certain events, asking those questions, talking about it, will lead to unlocking that certain memory. I can't say that I have actually experienced that. But that's a pretty traumatic thing that Picard's holding on to. And again, this speaks to on how Patrick Stewart wants to close this off for Picard, to add a layer to it where we'll understand Picard a little bit more. That's one of his intentions of doing how he did this, especially season 2, in my opinion, at least. My 2 ECs. So it's a very good scene. I quite enjoyed this scene. It does a lot of building up to the certain time frame where Picard's gonna be like, yeah, I get it. You know what I mean? So, and of course, setting up Talon's role as it would be that we all know what she's gonna do, and we'll speak to that. So, the other team, of course, of Raffi 7 and Rios, they arrive in Sung's lab via the teleporty thingy. Yep, that's the term that we're gonna use, the teleporty thingy. They hear Sung giving instructions, and the computer says literally 4 minutes left. So keep that in mind. There's gonna be a lot of flipping back and forth because of this 4-minute time frame. So Picard arrives and Talon arrives at the launch pad. Same time, shortly after, of course, the team arrives in Sung's house. So there's gonna be a lot of back and forth here, but they're there. They realize that this is a recording. Sung's not there. They're saying, yeah, Sung knew. Sung knew that they were gonna get there. So probably didn't, of course, think of what was gonna happen on the other end, but what happens? Seven contacts Picard, Sung's not there because he's at the launch pad himself. He literally is trying to, I should say, make sure he stops Renee at all cost. First plan is to go there himself, to do what he can. Second, well, what with the scans showing it, what do they find? Well, they find these drones behind a wall, these 4 heat signatures, as Raffi said, and of course, there you go. There's 4 drones there, so the plan is, if Sung can't stop Renee, these 4 drones will. And it mentions something about targeting the RCS thrusters of shuttle. So plan is shoot the ship, crash it. There we go. That's the whole plan. And then there's a lot of back and forth here in this scenes because, yeah, it's just showing the time crunch. And this is kind of where the pacing starts to pick up, obviously, because it is working up towards the end. But it's very... I'm going to speak to Sung. Now, Sung, to me, it's very off-putting to see Brent Spiner do this. Not, of course, again, I love Brent Spiner. I love Data. He's been known to do all the Sungs here, obviously. But it's thrown me off, and I cannot connect with this character. And it could just be because it's superficial. I see him, I'm thinking Data. That's just me. I'm thinking Data. But we all know Brent Spiner wanted to close off Data's chapter. They did that in season 1. I was okay with it. It was a beautiful moment, actually. Something that I appreciated. And with Brent Spiner, he probably had a lot of fun doing this because Brent Spiner is a very versatile actor. So I cannot sort of give in too much negativity on how he did Sung. It's just that I couldn't connect with it. Again, a connection is very strong with me when it comes to something that I love, something I'm passionate about, obviously Star Trek. And plus, he is the face of Data. I can't get away from it. I'm sorry, I just see it. That's just how I'm feeling. So we'll speak more on that later. But again, this whole evil thing, it just didn't sit right with me. I didn't like it personally. It was good to watch, to see him do his thing in his mind, really enjoying it, probably, right? A lot of these actors only sign off and do these roles if they want to, essentially. So, and here's the thing. The next thing they do, they try to tamper it. Raffi says, if they even tamper with it, it's gonna go boom. What does she do? She starts tampering with it to try to get manual override. So that I didn't like. That definitely threw a dent in my overall scoring of this, but it is what it is. It was more filler stuff, and again, it is what it is. And then this is why Raffi, again, sort of, I could not really connect with her, is because of that. So it is what it is. That's the plan there. So now in this scene, goes back to Talon. Let's just take this moment to talk about it. Talon is walking through the halls of a secured area, just really nearly walking, which everyone has like tags or something or whatever. But she just kind of got in there. Now she's got teleport devices, fine. I'm there. But no, she gets through. She sees someone leave a room and she's like, okay, you know what? I gotta get to Renee at all costs. So, well, we know she follows in that said person to the room, goes back again to the scene there. Again, there's a lot of flipping back and forth with Raffi 7. Rios, they're all panicking, like, oh my god, gotta do something. And of course, Raffi tells him, get pliers, whatever. I'm trying to get manual control. Again, it just defeated that whole statement of if I touch anything, we tamper anything, the whole thing goes boom. Well, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of, it's sort of totally takes that all out. Okay, and then let's the next scene here, back and forth. Now Talon, of course, has taken a uniform of one of the crew from Europa via following that person that came out of that room. And of course, she finds Renee. One thing that we didn't show here or didn't screen grab here was that Sung said a line to a person that was escorting him saying, did not my donations buy me 5 minutes with astronauts? Of course, he's just trying to push his way to get there, right? To get to Renee, to do what he can to stop all of this. So, you know, this is where the back and forth kind of gets me and just whatever. And, you know, him was being all evil and being very dismissive and being high and mighty. Of course, you can tell he's not running off of emotions, right? His heart's beating, he's trying to be calm, but he really needs to get to where he needs to get. There's not that much time left, right? So, because he knows that in 4 minutes this is what's going to happen, but it's going to take, that's when the drones are going to launch, not necessarily when the rocket's going to launch, but they need to still travel to point A to B. Of course, here Talon gets to Renee's room. Renee's looking up to the sky. Renee's saying the moment's here. And sees, turns around, sees Talon like, who are you? What? Talon's like, you know what? The crew member didn't feel too well. And she's like, nope. He's like, that's not, no. I don't think so. Try again. Thanks. Try again. So she wasn't buying it. And of course, let's back to this scene where, again, Sung's like, they're walking with this escort. The escort's like, I can't believe this day is coming. Like, what? And Sung's just trying to make her feel bad so that he can just sort of leave on. And he literally does that. What is wrong with you? Says, you know what? I will leave you here. Literally leaves her. And she's just like, what? Now you would think at this point in time, someone escorting someone is not is not just gonna let them go. He has no ID. Not that I saw. Even regardless, he's being escorted. And again, I gotta remind myself, it's just a show. Just let it happen. It's gonna happen. Okay, it's just gonna happen. So then, of course, it goes back to the scene of... Now, this scene between Talon and Renee, I really did enjoy, like 100%, because to get Renee to trust her, Talon literally told her the story of, do you remember that little spaceship that you put in your mother's casket in your funeral, and that you wanted to fly far enough in space to find her or something like that? And the moment between the two really got there, and I felt Talon's emotion towards Renee, and said that, yeah, you know what, people have guardian angels, well, I'm the guardian, right? At the end reveals she is the one. And there was a moment where Talon saved Renee, I believe saved her, was there when a ship that she was on when she was a kid capsized, and Talon gives her a necklace. It was there. Talon gives her necklace again and is really saying, hey, you got to trust me. Your life's in danger. Trust me. So the moment between the two was really good. I felt Renee's, I don't know, actually, I don't even know Renee's actress either, but I can connect with them in this scene. I enjoyed this interaction. I enjoyed this whole story between the two for what it was, and it was very touching. The emotions, you can tell, was there. The emotions definitely was there. And there was never a moment where I was just like thinking, what's this, all seems wrong. No, I was engaged, I was there, and I would say I'd even connected more with Talon and Renee than I did Rios and Raffi. Again, nothing against the actors, it's just, that's just how I'm working, that's just how I was wired. So then here we go, back here, these things start launching off, literally just start launching off. And they're trying to get Raffi to hurry up, but they've already all launched, and that happens. Picard is here at the launch scene again. Like, how he found him, I'm just gonna give up the plot. He's not really quick. Picard's not really quick, but he keeps an eye on Sung. He's following him, keeping his tabs on him, obviously, here. Just a scene, and then of course here, that scene we're talking about again with Renee, and you can tell what's gonna happen next, right? After the whole thing, trust me. But again, speaking to Renee, knowing that this was of course Picard's, ancestor, and that she played such an important role, it was enough for me. The way that the actress brought her performance on screen really worked for me. So I appreciate it. I loved it. Again, the story between these two, it was also touching. I felt the feels. I'm not gonna lie, I felt the feels. Not enough to make my eyes leak, but it was there, because it was a lot of just. Could you imagine someone telling you, hey, I've known you all your life, I'm your guardian, I was there from when your mother died to now. Just having your life being told to you, it's just like, wow, it's an overwhelming thing. So next scene, Renee bursts out of her office. Of course, Dr. Sung is there saying, hey, there's this crazy woman telling me she's like an alien guardian, whatever. And he reaches out his hand and literally touches her face. Okay, touches her face, says, hey, I'm here, don't worry, here, come with me. Of course, come with me. So in his mind, I got this, right? I got this. So it's literally now winding down to the time of this launch. So he thinks he's got it, right? Next scene, of course, they're back to Sung's house. Now, again, Rios is on the controls. I thought if there's any tampering, things are going to blow up. I hate that, but this is exactly what I was thinking. The only thing that I liked about this scene here was just Seven's lines. That's it. That's it. And of course, Seven, I love Seven. This is period point blank. I love Seven. So Raffi does her thing. Goes back to here. Of course, they're walking. Sung is on the phone, and of course, the effects take place. Why? Because Sung had a neurotoxin on his hand that he touched Renee with on her face, and it's a neurotoxin. It's quick and it's fatal. So the heavy breathing there, she starts staggering, and this is again a part, the performance I connected to Renee more than I connected to Sung. So just to kind of give you a thought of just how I operate when it comes to these things in terms of my connection. It's very important that I connect with certain aspects, which of course will affect how I score the overall thing or how I connect to the whole overall story. So again, she's dying. At this point, she's dying. And Sung just leaves her there. just walks off. Like it just he got it, right? And now goes back to Sung's house. Raffi gets control. Now the Raffi got manual control. And I thought this was supposed to shoot down the RCS or was it supposed to crash into? I'm not sure, but all he does is crash into the other three. And that's it. Just like that. And if this is the screen he's looking at, there's not even... What they could have done is put a camera from the point of view of the drone. But no, he crashed, hit all the 3 targets using this screen? Unless I missed something, but I watched it. I didn't see anything of a screen. Yeah, there's a compass there, but I don't think this is enough for a way to crash into moving, flying targets that are literally the size of a kite. So sure. Like, again, I will leave it to the plot and say, sure, I will go with it. Again, this is just something that, again, I cannot sort of connect with in terms of all this stuff. Sure. It is what it is. Then, of course, Renee staggering, finds Picard. And, of course, we all know that this is not Renee. But this scene, I love, again, the actress sold it for me. I was there. The interaction between Picard and Renee, it just felt though sort of, how should I say it? I'm not saying it's not real. Obviously, it's not real. It's just a show. But I couldn't connect to that necessarily all the way. I did because Renee sold it for me in this scene. And of course, well, they look up, the rocket does launch, and then she takes off her holographic memory. Now, she obviously dies, and this is Talon, the Watcher. This is not Laris, of course. And here it just felt empty, if that makes sense. This scene just felt very empty to me. And what I mean empty is not how Talon portrayed the actress, portrayed the scene. I loved her and what she did here. That sacrifice was there. But she did mention something to Picard, that all those secrets, it does not matter. She was so happy that Renee knew the truth. Of course, speaking again to Picard's emotions about, love. Let's just say it, just love. And the way she died, it was just kind of, man, like I wish it really didn't have to be something else. Now, of course, she dies. The scene kind of pans away from just them sitting there. So what happens to her body? I'm guessing Picard, I can only just assume Picard sort of just used a teleport device or something. I don't know. Again, I try not to think too deep of it, but it did come there. It did come to the mind, the thought. So her body? Because her ears are right there. Not like someone's gonna just find her like, oh, look, just regular human on the floor. What happened? And then see the ears, huh? But we knew they got rid of it somehow, and it is what it is, whatever. Now, I would think that her physiology, her biology, talents would have... I was hoping beyond hope, to be honest with you, would have counteracted that, or just say it would just leave her disabled, or to the point where she has to just hide now, or something. But no, she died, and that just kind of really sucked. Next scene, of course, now goes to the lab, hands over to Sung, looking at this newscast happening. So again, the lab smash, whether that was from Rios, Raffi, and Seven being there, or Sung knowing like literally everything failed. Literally everything failed because Renee got on there and she even shows the necklace that Talon gave her because, yeah, no, she trusted her and enough to, yeah, okay, sure, do your thing. I'm going to get this done. And there, the history was not changed. She was still able to get onto and the ship, obviously, in there. And this felt, again, Sung's reaction here was just, he walks away, he's pissed, he throws something in the mirror, and then all of a sudden, here's his computer going off. Start seeing all his files, all your life's work. So he's already pissed. There's a level of being pissed, and that's like 1 to 10. He was already at a 10. And then this happens, and what happens? Well, it's Corey in a library deleting everything. Deleting all his works, and there's a conversation between the two, Daddy and building a new future. Now, speaking about Corey, I could not, again, I didn't really like this character much. Not to say she's a bad actress. I've seen her before here and there. And if I'm not mistaken, she's also the daughter of Seven's alternate timeline husband in real life. Like, that's her father, which is kind of cool. But anyways, she's in the library using her goggles, whatever. Erasing all the files, telling, hey, listen, done. This is for my sisters. And again, the face of Sung is just pissed. So he just went from 10 to whatever, nuclear. It's done. What does he do, though? He then pulls out this file that says Project Con. Well, we all know that this was sort of going to happen sooner or later. They just wanted to throw this out. And I get why as much as I don't like, or nor do I agree with shows going backwards in time, it gives them an opportunity to show how things did happen. I get that. I really do. But it's almost like I just wish you could move forward. That's all. But here you go, Project Con. That's going to happen however it is. So go back again to Corey. She gets a message. Curious what's next? Watch and observe. Given an address. She goes there. Okay, now this is going to go speak to my feels. Okay, this is going to speak to my feels because what did I say earlier when we started this video? Said that all these impressions that I have are for when I was a kid. And they are essentially ingrained in me how much I love the character, how much I love the series, whatever have you. And this next scene made me smile. 100% made me smile. Why? So Corey gets to the scene of this address, and lo and behold, behind her is who? It's our boy. It's our boy, Wesley. Of course, we haven't seen him since TNG because he became Traveler, and there was a cute little scene. It's like she said, Q, if that's you, and he's like, no, we are totally different. Now, there was a lot in this scene for me, but the whole time I was just smiling. I was just smiling. I'll be honest, period, point blank. It was really good to sort of see him. And one of the things that was mentioned on the bridge was Twitch Bridge when we were discussing this, was they really kept this under wraps. And of course, he was doing all like those ready rooms and everything, and he had to keep the secret, which of course they're used to. But could you imagine knowing that you were going to make a cameo and you're like interviewing, like, I know I'm going to be there too, don't worry. Like, but I was fanboying the whole time. I really was, and the feels were strong. And he introduces himself, of course, as a traveler, saying he likes to say his colleagues and I. And Corey says to us, like, you're kidding, right? He makes a joke. It's like, the last time I told the joke, I inadvertently changed a century's worth of history. So I really try hard, or I work hard not to be misunderstood, and that's a lot. Corey says, and like, you have no idea. So he goes into the explanation of what they are. Again, there's concerns here when I have that when Wesley tries to tell Corey what the travelers are. So they try to ensure the proper flow of time and says that they only interfere when they need to. So at this point, even though I'm fanboying here that Wesley's here, I can't help but think like, okay, he's here, but you were allowing all this to happen, so they knew already that this was all going to get fixed. So anyways, there's a proposition. Wesley says, hey, listen, there's two paths. One, you're going to live a perfectly normal life. Two, you come with me if you want to live. Why did I hear Arnold Schwarzenegger in my mind? You come with me if you want to live, but I cannot guarantee your safety. So, of course, Corey does actually go with him. And next thing they know, this is the final scene here with Corey going with Wesley now. Are going to come back? I'm not sure. Again, speaking to my connection, Wesley, I always enjoyed the character Wesley. I have nothing but good memories of him. I quite enjoyed the whole growing up with pretty much everything that was Star Trek The Next Generation. Because Wesley, I can almost feel like it was me when I was growing up. But yeah, so there you go. Wesley takes Corey. She is now part of the Travelers. So how that's going to pan out, whether it's going to come back into season 3, which we all kind of know that is the last season, we'll see how that goes. And of course, it goes back to the chateau. They're all back there now. Rios is getting all of the tech that they brought to try to get rid of the quote-unquote butterflies for the butterfly effect. Some just comm badges, tricorders, and a broken phaser or whatever. And they have this realization that they're going to be living there. And Seven makes a joke as, how does money work? And Ruiz is like, come to LA, and of course he's called over to Teresa. Ricardo kind of just goes over there. Ricardo is the one that calls him. He just goes over there. So we kind of know where that is leading, but we'll speak on that later. Next moment was kind of cool. I connected with this because, of course, it's Seven. Seven and Rafi, they finally have a connection. To me, though, there wasn't enough build-up. Now, again, I do admit I didn't watch a lot of the season. I just skimmed it. If this is what's going to make the character Seven happy, do you, girl. I still love Seven. I still couldn't connect to Rafi the one as much. And what's only making this scene work for me, of course, is Seven. So I hope that in season 3 we get more of Seven. Now, with one of the videos we covered here on the YouTube bridge, well, we know that literally the TNG crew is back. So are they going to launch off of this? Or is Seven going to have her own series? Maybe. Hope so. That'd be great. Captain Seven? Yes, yes! Anyway, sorry. I'm going too far ahead. But again, I love Seven. She's just one of my favorite characters ever since Voyager. And I appreciated what she did here. And when she got stabbed by Jurati, the Borg Queen, I kind of felt, I was like, oh no, not again. But we knew something was going to happen. Of course, that's how she got her Borg implants back. This scene made me laugh. And of course, one of the things I loved about this, and I'll speak to this now, was a lot of the musical scores of Picard. In this scene, of course, it did play a little bit of the Picard theme. He's got that key, of course, because the key was, this is where he found the key as a little boy, let his mom out. And of course, that led to her hanging herself. And he, at the time, was just wondering, should I? And for some reason, I thought how this whole scene was playing, I thought someone was going to come in on him from either the door or something, because literally the way that the camera angles were working, I thought someone was going to come, hey, Jean-Luc, are you okay, or whatever. But he takes the key, puts it back in that secret place so that the boy, the future Picard in this timeline, is going to find it and still lead to the events. And of course, what happens? What happens here? He hears a little voice in the background. And again, this, oof, this scene is, oof. Of course, he hears Destiny. We all know it's Q. I'm going to speak to Q sitting there, which speaks more to Delancey. And him sitting there with his head down, it almost felt like it was me knowing what's going to happen next. Just sitting sad and everything, because he knows, right? But this is where we find out why everything has happened. He literally did it so that Jean-Luc can forgive himself. You know, that's literally all it was. But then the moment between the two was just so good. And I really felt the conversation between those two. There's history there. You can feel it, or I can feel it. I definitely felt it. And I could not ask for anything more between these two in this scene, because it was just them two chairs, go. And it was literally one of my favorite moments in this episode, was just the interaction at the end between these two. And it was literally all about Picard. But all this, though, really? Q? Really? Just to teach him a lesson. And of course, Picard says, because I have to be prepared for something. He's like, no, it doesn't have to be about an event. It doesn't, no. It just has to be because, you know what? I like you. And even gods have their favorite. And he says, yeah, he says to Picard, the reason for all this, Q just says to him, it matters to him, you matter to me. The feels, Captain. Ooh, the feels. There's a lot, of course, that they said there, and I'm not going to get into the details, but just that moment is so hard to concentrate on trying to make, even though I watch it, because I get lost in it. It's so good, the moment between, I get lost in it. But, of course, as about Picard's going to say something, he said, oh, time's almost up. So what does Picard do? He goes back to them, and again, here is, again, along with Rios, Teresa, and Ricardo, I have really, those three I couldn't connect with. Same with Raffi. The only thing here that made me connect with this, of course, is Picard and Seven. What's up? They're, of course, saying, well, here we go, right? And of course, they all go, and Q meets them there at the road. This is where now, okay, you're going back. Y'all done. Y'all did this. It's all, everything is coming to an end. Of course, Raffi's all pissed because of Elnor, and in that moment, he actually goes up to Q, chokes him, and he says, maybe in my weakened state you can kill me, but then, of course, you won't be able to get back home. So this is the moment, Captains. This is the moment where they're going to be brought back to the time which we kind of already knew from the beginning, because we knew they're going to end up back on the bridge of the Stargazer. How? Well, because Q just wanted to make this elaborate way of teaching Jean-Luc how to live with himself and let his heart open, and that was kind of the whole thing. Forgiveness. He said it there in the speech there when he's talking with Picard. It's about forgiveness. And he's satisfied enough knowing that Picard, and that he can move on. But that again is going to lead up to this moment where everyone's saying, but last surprise though, Rios wants to stay. There's a lot of videos already out there on YouTube saying fan theory that he's going to stay, but of course Picard's like, dude, you can't do that. Then he says like, hey, listen, I was living in a future on a cargo ship with 5 holographic versions of myself. Not really too encouraging, but having said that, before they came to the alternate timeline, he was the captain of the Stargazer. But he feels like nothing sticks. Sure, plot. Again, maybe this is why I'm not connecting with him, just because, sure, he's just getting thrown around willy-nilly, however he wants to be, or however they want the character to be thrown around, and so whatever, he stays with Teresa and Ricardo. Picard's like, okay, well, make the best future you can, right? Rafi and Rios hug, of course, too, as well. And of course, the moment comes, Captain. This probably was one. Yeah, I was not ready for this. I was not ready for this. But he does say it was unexpected. Maybe there'll be some surplus energy for a surprise, a gift, and this moment comes. It's the moment when Q is going to move on with this last little deed of getting them back to the present time. And he says one of the things where, it's even hard to talk about now, even though I've watched it so many times. I've watched it, and still till this day, it's kind of hard to sort of digest, but that's because of how good Delancey delivered it. It's how good he delivered it. And of course he says, farewell, mon capitaine. Whew, whew, whew. No, not right now. Just the feels. The feels were there, and then of course what Picard says. What he, Sorry, Caps. He says, it's time for me to go. As Picard says, but not alone. Now, the music, the score of this was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I don't know why. I'm getting emotional. It was just that good. It really was. And it was the point of all this. And what does Picard do? He actually goes in for the hug. This moment right here, this made it for me. All my nostalgia from the TNG brought the overall enjoyment of this because of these two. It covered a lot of or made me put aside any other things that I didn't like because of this. This moment between the two, between you and Picard, was really heartfelt. Twitter lost it. I know Twitter lost it. And he says, see you out there. Like, oh my gosh, the feels. It was. If we would have played this, I probably would be, my eyes would probably be leaking. But I'm just trying to compose myself because I didn't. You would think after watching how many times, no, I still get it because this. I also saw a announcement on a little video on Twitter with Delancey in the room there where Picard's mother died, talking to the crew, and he actually said, he was telling a story of Gene Roddenberry saying, you don't know what you've gotten yourself into. And he actually got emotional there, and he actually gave Picard a hug. There was a group. So he put everything in this. He never shortchanged us. And I felt it in all of his performances, from his just being him Q. And it was a beautiful moment. I'll say it. It was just a beautiful moment. And for me, the connection was these two for this whole season to why I even thought of doing a review on this was because of these two, was because of Delancey and Picard. So again, snaps his finger, guess what happens? Here we go. This is where the scene right before the Stargazer blows up. We're back here in the future. All these ships are just kind of floating needlessly. We'll probably do something. We'll probably cover this a little bit more as a separate topic, or separate video, I should say, when it comes to covering the ships, because you all know, captains, I'm all about the ships. But they're on the bridge again. This is where some of the issues I have with this comes here, and part of which why it brings a score down for me overall. Now they're back on the bridge, of course. He's hearing the countdown. He's hearing the music. The Borg Queen's right there. And he says, well, the Queen has had 400 years to think about. He obviously stops the auto-destruct sequence, orders everyone to stand down, and the reveal. Of course, he's thinking of all this stuff when he's giving this order, and then the reveal, it's Jurati. We'll loop back to this later, but we'll just go on here and try to finish off this, because I know this is probably one of the longer videos that we've done. But I felt like I need to do this because of the said reasons earlier at the beginning of this video. So it's Jurati. Now, my issues here are a couple superficial things. Is this CG? Captain's comment below it. This didn't feel like it was Jurati. This felt like a floating CGI head pasted upon here. The Borg Queen, the original Borg Queen in Picard, it didn't look like this. There was something off of me. I couldn't connect to the scene. Now, the character herself, Jurati, again, I loved her. I loved her parts here. I connected more with her than I did with Raffi and Rios, Corey. But this scene kind of threw me off a lot because, again, we'll circle back to that. So, of course, the reason why the music was playing, wanted to calm him down, Picard down. There is a reason why this is happening. Again, the reveal, it just kind of goes into this musical little fadeaway, then cuts back to the ships just floating there needlessly. Again, Stargazer's right there. Didn't really see the Excel 2.0, but you can see an inquiry there. The Titan, the Kira, the Sutherland from Star Trek Online, 2 Sutherlands there, Sovereign, another Sovereign there. So again, we'll kind of go over this a little bit more on a different video, but that's just the scene. So go back to the bridge. Raffi comes out of the turbo lift. I was like, what's going on here? And just sees Jurati's like, hey, right? Like, what? So in these last, like, what, however minute that's just passed, they're collecting themselves, and she's explaining, well, the reason why she's doing this. Something's gonna happen, right? And of course, the helm officer says that there's like neutrino emissions or whatever happening here, and turns around, goes, where's Captain Rios? We're going to circle back to this because I thought things were going to happen differently, but they didn't, and we're just going to go with it and say, hey, it's a TV show, Triz, don't worry about it, it's a TV show. Next thing you know, yes, this is what's happening. A huge hole, whirlpool is happening, coming out there, and the whole purpose of this was Jurati wanted to use the fleet to form a sort of barrier, shield, protective barrier for the billions of lives that will be affected by this anomaly. Now, I'm going to take a couple seconds here and just talk about the view screen. Look how bloody big that view screen is. It's just, I'm okay with the tech being like this here in this future, because this is more forward than, I'm going to go back to Strange New Worlds Discovery. I'm fine with this. But man, that is a massive view screen. Massive. So, again, Jurati explains to Picard what's going on, needs someone to trust, needed a friend. I like that moment, some cute moments, some cute callbacks. Picard says, I believe that you're still in it. Partly, of course. Yeah, no, she at 400 years, she's a collective, but we're going to circle back to that collective part there. So he gives full authorization to the Queen, but before doing that, well, gives a field commission to Seven. I love it. Yes, this spoke to earlier. I hope this becomes some sort of spin-off. Could you imagine a series where Seven is the captain? Yes, please. Even if you're at least close this off somehow in season 3. To have Seven begin the season on the Stargazer or whatever have you. Okay, so there's a thing. She, of course, then tells Helm to, or the communications to tell Starfleet, hey, don't resist. Thought that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool moment. Borg Queen says we're out of time, takes complete control of the fleet and brings them right in front of this anomaly. Look at that. That's just, ugh, oof. That is an oof if I've ever seen one. So I don't necessarily like this Borg ship. And again, this could speak to what one of our thoughts are in there, is that Borg app. Just they weren't really that far away from this thing. So this we're going to talk about again. We will talk in a different video, but I didn't like that. This fleet shot though was awesome, was cool. I thought it'd be nice if there's more ships, but it just again felt okay enough to harken back. So then they start harmonizing the shield is what they said. There's a shot there from behind of look how huge, massive this thing is. This anomaly that's about to blow up or spew out huge amounts of energy. And so a shield starts forming in front of the fleet, this grid formation that Jurati has formed with Starfleet. And of course, there's that shot there. Look how massive that hole is. I have my issues with that, but not to say that to take away from this how beautiful this looks. Captains, I love my ships, my pretty pew-pews. And in these scenes, it was really showing off more shots of the Ross, the Sutherland, the Reliance even, of course, the Stargazer, and of course the XL 2.0. Speaking of the 2.0, the XL was having trouble harmonizing with its shields or something, and can I just say that, yes, I so want that ship in Star Trek Online, but again, it's the ship that was having problems. You just need an excuse to show it, right? And there's a big hole there, of course, now in this grid shield that they formed. Next thing you know, Raffi communicates with Excel. So in this, I'm going to ask, where's the captain? Right? Where's the captain? She's not the captain. She's wearing like a yellow uniform with 3 pips, if I'm not mistaken. So that was weird. Of course, who answers the call? It's Elnor. So that was the surprise. That was the gift from Q, the spare energy, because he didn't have to transport Rios. He used it to bring back Elnor. And well, the line, of course, is saying Q, dang it, Q. And of course, Picard says, yeah, that's the reason. So then he fixes the shield, harmonics, whatever it is, and this, just look how massive that thing is. And I understand that, one, again, this is a show, the calculations, blah, blah, of how this was going to be. It's literally just a beam. Why wouldn't this explode like a volcano that it spews kind of, it's everywhere, the direction? That's the issue I had with this scene. I'm nitpicking at this point, Captains. I really am, because this is where my head is just, this is what I'm feeling watching this. Like, why? So there's that. Sure, it's just a beam that would have destroyed countless worlds, but it would have been a beam just spitting straight out. Now, not to say that there wouldn't have been any planets there, but what this showed was it was just literally a directed beam. Now, this, again, is a shot I picked this one for some reason. When the sound that I heard here was the it just felt like, yeah, that was my impression of it. It just felt like sort of clubby to me. That's all I could say, clubby. And there's that shot, of course, the Stargazer, the Enterprise, Sutherland, and the Reliant there a little bit there at the top there. But then next shot, of course, shows some planets of what they're saving. There you go. Bunch of planets showing. It was some really gorgeous shots of the planets. It really was, but that was what they were trying to protect. And then all of a sudden it stops. That's it. They done the job. Now, in this whole time, you would think this whole sort of event, you would see more flying styrofoam blocks, rocks on the ships. No, it was just a little bit of shaking, them moving in their chairs. That was it. That was about it. So the danger, I didn't feel it because of just those things that I just mentioned. But again, I'll accept it for what it is. This gave me a sense of scale. Obviously, not just me. I'm pretty sure a lot of everyone's scale. So, and then all of a sudden, back to the shot here. This thing turns from orange to blue. Seven says it's a transwarp conduit, one that she hasn't seen before. They go into it trying to explain, well, what's this? Well, this is tied to a bigger threat that's going to happen. Well, so much for it's not always about a galactic threat that Q said it is. And in this part here, Girardi asks to be part of the Federation, to be the guardian at the gate. So they're going to be left there to kind of keep tabs on this, because this is going to lead into a bigger threat down the line, of course, which is probably going to be in season 3. So this didn't look as much as CG, but the whole thing here, when it came to a lot of our scenes here on the bridge, is it was off-putting a little bit because it just looked like CG. It just didn't look right for some reason. So correct if I'm wrong, Captains. If you know if it was actually a CG or if it was not, let me know in the comments below. But to me, it just didn't look right. I get why they had to do this, but then this is where my issues lie. This is where my issues lie, but we'll circle back to that in a bit. So what happens now? Well, they get dropped off by the Stargazer. I've said this before. I want that ship. I want that ship in Star Trek Online. And we said this before. We were supposed to get that ship on day 1 of season 2, but of course they had to go through whatever they have to go through. So we're going to eventually get the ship. Not the prettiest, but I love it. It's good. Then, of course, here is Guinan. Feels all the way around. I love Whoopi. Always have. Always loved that relationship between Picard and Guinan. And I'm glad that they brought her back. And, of course, she just mentions talking about Rios and essentially how they are. And she's like, well, I can't believe you haven't noticed a picture of the two. And they were there. And she... You know, Picard asked what happened to them. Of course, Teresa just kind of died of old age. Rios died in a bar fight over medical supplies with a cigar in his hand, with his last breath into a cigar. And, of course, Guinan explains what happened to Ricardo, forms a team from essentially of the brightest minds of that time to clean up all, like, the waters, the skies, all the pollution on Earth, from what was discovered by Renee in Mission Europa. So that's how it ties into this whole thing. That's why it needed to happen, that Renee had to succeed. If not, then, well, all this wouldn't have happened. So Picard then throws a toast to family. This harkens back to just those scenes, especially back in Nemesis. That's kind of what I feel and remembered when he said to family. Funny how he's like cheering everyone. He's like the first one into the wine. So again, love this scene where Whoopi was back, and it was great. So now he says he's got to go. He's got to catch, well, his love train. And who is that? Loris. And he literally asks for a second chance in not so many little ways, you know. And of course, she agrees. And it's great that it kind of ended off like this, and I'm not going to sort of go into like the discussion of the two, but it was really good. Again, I think that really Patrick Stewart wanted to close off Picard's character in a lot of ways, and this was one of them, to actually get him to sort of, you know, love again, you know, and it was good. The one line that I really took away from this was from what he was kind of telling Picard, you know, and the again, some of the Star Trek music are playing, and it was just again feels moments, but he says there are moments in our lives we fear to receive and others we long to repeat. While time cannot give us second chances, maybe people can. Laura says, of course, yes, in her little nodding way, not so much worse. And this is kind of how it ends off in the room again of where his mother died, because of course now everything's tied up in a little bow, and that's how this is ended off. Now I'll just speak again to the characters again, as much as I've said it already in this long video. Elnor, cool character, couldn't connect with him. I really couldn't. Corey, same thing. Talon, that actress, I really do enjoy, of course, Laris. Really enjoyed the moments. Of course, Rios, I've already said it's Raffi. 7, of course, 7 is 7. How can I not? 7 is 7. Guinan, of course, I did love Guinan. Now, Jurati, the Borg Queen, like I'd mentioned, it was kind of weird, but we're going to speak to that quickly here after all this kind of wrapping up. And for Sung, I just could not get behind his evil villain twirling mustache thing. It just felt too overboard for me. Picard, I've mentioned before, just a frail old old man, but he will always forever be my captain. And Q, well, Q is what did this for me, and why I think it just made it work for me on so many levels. And I could not be more happier on how it ended, especially that scene between him and Picard, him and Patrick Stewart, we can say. So where does this leave us? Well, again, right now we have a threat. What is that threat? Is it maybe a different set of Borg? Because the ship here is not a cube, a square, or whatever. It's a starfish. It's a space starfish. And maybe that is going to be the new threat. We're not sure. I hope in season 3 there's going to be more space. A lot of it, season 2, of course, like I said, the reason why I didn't watch it was a lack of the pew-pews there. But still, very good overall. What I gave this is an 8.5. And a lot of that, what brought that score up, I will 100% say, is the fact that this is my childhood. This is what got me into Trek. So how can I not lean into my feels? This is all of what Star Trek has been for me, is about the feels, how I feel about the ship's character story. And that's why, again, I've mentioned what the negative parts were for me, and that's what brought it down. But I still think it's a pretty solid score at the end, and it's getting me excited for season 3 and see what they do with the original crew, especially coming back. So, Captains, I know this is one of the longest videos I've done, and I wanted to do this. I really did want to do this, and I just needed time to kind of put my thoughts together. And as much as it is just me talking about my feels, it is very important to me to share this with you, Captains. So I thank you for sticking with me through this. But the last couple things here, one of the last things that I'll have issues with again, well, this is why I had issues with how they came about. They were on the bridge before the snap, before they were transported back. This was the scene before everything went to poop. Rios was there, Jurati was there. Who's this queen? This is where, again, I try not to think of it too much because we all know this is just a show, Triz, it's just a show, but I thought I'd point that out because, well, yeah, that is a thing that happened. I don't know if they're going to explain that off. Whatever. If it's just a plot, it is a plot. It's canon now. Sure, we'll just leave it at that. But I do like, again, the shot here of the community bridge here. Community bridge. I meant community hall. We'll call it community bridge. But having this, again, speaking to all the characters there, I loved how they're making the Stargazer in this poster here. But again, what really made this for me is, of course, Picard and Q. Q being the focal point for me. And of course, these two, having them close this off it felt like a good little bow for me. And I can really kind of just go off of that and be happy enough for how they did this. I wasn't really too invested in season 1. Season 2, this last episode, all I can say is thank you. So, captains, I'd like to say thank you for checking these videos out. Again, I know this one's long, so I really do appreciate you captains letting me do my little trisism. So, we're not sure if we're going to cover more of what Picard has to offer or any of the other future Trek, but I know that I will always have my ECs to drop, and when I do, captains, thank you so much. So consider liking the video, commenting down below, subscribing to the YouTube bridge. Again, captains, know that I'm so thankful and humbled for all the support that you show here, not only on the YouTube bridge, but also on the Twitch bridge. But we will always leave it on this note, because this is one of the things that I keep in mind whenever I look for advice from a captain. Of course, here it is. Captains, until the next one.
Don't let them promote you. Don't let them transfer you. Don't let them do anything that takes you off the bridge of that ship, because while you're there, you can make a difference.